Okay, so this is the passage, a pretty crazy one in my opinion. Why? Because it has a lot of these statistics and facts and details that we are not really interested in, and we are only gonna focus on that and read that if the question asks us for. So, what I'm gonna do is basically, again, kind of like work with my a GPS technique and kind of like combination of this visualizing technique, in which I'm going to probably use symbols and just write the major ideas while ignoring the details. Okay, so it says, despite the hypothesis ranging from armed conflict to climate change, so there is a hypothesis, several hypotheses quite honestly, and there's almost like a range from armed conflicts to climate change, the abandonment of more than 600 Pueblo cliff dwellings in Mesa Verde by AD 1300 still puzzles archaeologists. So there is a lot of crazy stuff out there. So first of all, this is basically a dependent clause. Why? Because I know because of this subordinate conjunction. Okay, subordinate conjunction. And I know that this is not the major idea. This is just like almost like an introductory clause, which is just giving a background or probably an introduction to the passage. The main idea is the abandonment of something. I don't really care all about this crazy stuff. So there is some type of abandonment, and it is puzzling for the archaeologist. So what I'm going to write is, since this is the independent clause, and again, guys, I'm using a lot of my essay ability, all right? So there is some type of abandonment, and it is quite confusing, okay? It's quite confusing. It is almost like a paradox or something which is quite complicated, something to this effect. And now I'm shifting to my pre-thinking abilities. So already I'm assuming that, okay, so the author is probably going to tell me how this abandonment is really confusing and how basically two things simply don't add up, something to this effect, okay? So let's see. Researchers analyzing reviews from one Pueblo community found remains of maize, a Pueblo crop, in 44% of samples from years when the community flourished, but in only 10% of the samples from years near the time of depopulation, while the remains of the wild plants increased significantly. So, I mean, there is a lot of statistics and detail. And what these detail is basically describing the confusion, the paradox. Do I need to write this down? Not necessarily. Why? Because only if these statistics, like this 44%, 10%, blah, 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 all of this is just extra information. If the question is going to demand me, if the question STEM is going to ask me about it, I'm just going to go back that and focus it on more. Right now, I don't need to. Why? Because I know that it is a description of what the paradox is about, which is basically the GPS technique is about. Okay, moving on. Bones found in the samples showed, okay, so there's some type of bones, and they're probably telling us something, that the consumption of domesticated turkeys, these crazy chickens, which were fed maize, decreased from this to this, while there was a marked increase in the wild animal bones. Okay, so probably there is some type of decrease on one side and increase on the other. So bones, so some type of bones are showing something that domesticated turkeys, okay, so these turkeys went down while there was a marked increase in the wild animal bones. So when you're talking about these wild animals, their bones went up. Okay, so probably, again, using my pre-thinking ability, the author is going to tell me a possible, I don't know, hypothesis or probably some type of explanation that why these turkey bones are going down and these wild animals are going up. I don't know. Okay, it says, yeah, These data suggest, okay, that near the end of the site occupation, villagers experienced substantial food shortage and adopted hunting as gathering strategies to compensate for crop failure. Okay, so the author is probably suggesting, again, an explanation, or you can say some supportive ideas, that the reason why these, wild animal bones were increasing is because probably people started hunting, and there was this shift from crops to hunting. Okay, crops to hunting. Why? Because probably there was some decrease in the crops, so people were like, hey, we need to survive, so we need to do hunting, and probably these wild animals bones were increasing as a result of that. Now again, this all of this is just a speculation, guys. This is a hypothesis. Okay, so on the surface, if I want to quickly, summarize what's going on, so there's some type of abandonment in some area. I don't care what that is. It is really confusing. It's a paradox. It has some crazy statistics that don't really add up, that don't make sense. Then the author started giving me some type of information about the bones and what they basically suggest. They're suggesting that, okay, the turkey, the evidence that we have for, or the number of bones we have for turkey are quite low, and the wild animals' bones are quite high. And this probably suggests that, people from, what was it, the last sentence? The data says that near the end of the site occupation, villagers experienced substantial food shortage, okay, and adopted hunting and gathering strategies to compensate for crop failure. So when the crops were failing and they're going down, so people started hunting. That is it. And the rest of the stuff is just, information only that I need to look up to if the question asks me to. Okay. Question number 9. According to the passage, which of the following is likely true regarding the compensation of wild plants in Pueblo community investigating by the researchers? So which of the following is true regarding the wild plants? So if I come back here, the wild plants were, while the remaining of the wild plants increased significantly, what was decreasing? While the remaining of the plants increased significantly, refuse the Pueblo community remains food, 44% of the samples from years when the community flourished, but in only 10% of the samples from years near the time of the depopulation. So there is some type of decrease going on? Wait a second. Researchers analyzing refuse from one Pueblo community found remains of maize in 44% of the samples from year where the community flourished. So 44% flourished, but in only 10% of the samples from years near the time of depopulation, while the remains of the wild plants increased significantly. Only 10% of the samples near the time depopulation increased. Okay. So some stuff related to depopulation, and one is going up, the other's going down, something to this effect. So according to the passage, let's see if I'm not missing anything. Wild population became investigated by the researchers. So what can be true about these wild plants? Okay, let's see. It fell markedly as the consumption of wild animals increased. Okay, I see what the author is trying to say. So the author is literally trying to confuse the test taker. Confuse the test taker by mixing this information. Okay. Mixing this information. And it's almost like he is mixing the plant information with the bones. And this is what he's trying to do in order to come up with this trap answer. So honestly, when it comes to, these wild plants, it has nothing to do with the bones. So sorry, he's lying to us. It represented a continuation of centuries old tradition. Okay, so where did the author basically mention that there is some type of old tradition and it's simply continuing? What? No. It increased a domesticated source of food declined. So was there some type of food which is declining? Research analyzing refusal when people found remain of a maize, a Pueblo crop, in 40% of the samples from years when the community flourished, but in only 10% of the samples from year near the time of depopulation, while the remains of the plants increased significantly. Can this be suggested or inferred which the following is likely true regarding it increased and a domesticated source of food decline? The food was declining. Okay, let's leave this for now. Okay, let's leave this for now. It significantly affected the food supply of wild animals living nearby. Okay, so again, wild animals living. Can he? You know what this bee is trying to do? Let's call them Bob. You know how what is Bob trying to do? So he is trying to mix up two things like food supply. Okay, so first of all, these plantation and the crazy decrease was the reason why there was an abandonment. Did the author basically said anything that there was some type of effect on some other wild animals which were living nearby when it comes to wild plants? I mean, you need to mix the two paragraphs up in order to think something like that, but this is something that we can't do. We really need to focus on here on the first paragraph to answer this. So it's just mixing two concepts that doesn't make any sense. It decreased dramatically as the settlement began to decline. So the wild plants decreased dramatically as the settlement began to decline. So you're saying when the settlement declined, then these wild plants decreased as well? Is there any type of relationship which is defined like this? Wait a second. So the settlement went down. So when people were not settling, so probably, I don't know, running away, not settling. So these wild plants were going down? Really? Okay, let's read again. Researchers analyzing reviews from the local community found in blah, 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 in 14% of the samples from years when the community flourished, but in only 10% of the samples from year near the time of depopulation, while the remains of the wild plants increased significantly. Not really. It decreased dramatically, no. So the process of elimination, answer must be C. Okay. So guys, do you have any question related to this one before we move to question number 10? Any questions? Hello? Guys, why are you so slow in responding, man? Okay. Okay, cool. The researcher described in the passage most clearly supports. Okay, so the researcher described in the passage. So we're talking about the researchers in the passage most clearly supports which of the following claims about the abandonment of this. So there is some type of claim about the abandonment of this, whatever this place is. And in the eyes or lens of researcher, what could be the most clear support of that? So there's some type of claim and, about the abandonment. And the fact that, what would that be in the eyes of the researchers? Okay. So probably my guess would be, okay, so probably there was some type of weird stuff going on about these wild plants and their remains. Maybe this was the case, or probably, the people were not able to cope up with the crops and they were forced to, hunt for animals, these wild animals, and probably hunting wild animals. I mean, you can easily hunt a deer, right? Or a buffalo or something like that. But just imagine that you need to, hunt a lion or some other wild creature which can literally tear you apart. This is like super dangerous, man. It's like, oh my God, you might be sweating, right? While hunting these badasses. So this could be the case that, this hunting is not simply, viable. It's not practical. Something to this effect. Okay. It happened more rapidly in certain public communities than in others. So do I have any information? Okay, so if this is the total, this P community, do I have any comparison between community A and community B? The answer is no. Sorry. It has been misdated by previous Oh, come on. I mean, did the passage tell me anything about what previous archaeologists said? And what the recent archaeologists are saying? Oh, come on, man. That's definitely wrong. It may have been hastened by the abundance of wild animals in the area. Abandonment, so the claim about the abandonment, so it may be hastened So you might have, done it in a hurry by the abundance of wild animals in the area. Okay. So because wild animals were large in number, so people started moving away in a hurry. This is what the C is saying, right? It may have been hastened. So the abandonment might have been hastened by the abundance of wild animals in that area. Wait a second. Wasn't the wild animals a good thing? I don't know. Which fed decreased while there was a marked increase in the wild animal bones. The data suggests that near the end of the site occupation, villagers experienced a substantial food shortage and adapted hunting and gathering strategies to compensate for crop failure. So wild animal bones are increasing. Wild animal bones are increasing. It may have been hastened by the abundance of wild animals in the area. So if they're, if this is what they're relying on as food, would not that be a good thing? Like, they're basically hunting, right? Okay, maybe it doesn't seem very. Okay, just let's leave it for now. Let's leave it for now. It does seem weird because, according to the passage, they had no choice but to shift from crops to hunting these wild animals. So the more they are, the less reason people have to leave and abandon that place, right? So let's just keep it for now. Maybe, one meaning might be, and again, this is just an inference, that maybe these wild animals were too big in number to the fact that maybe they were a threat. Okay? They were a threat to people. Maybe. But the domain, this is just an inference, okay? So using this argument, I basically cannot select this. Because the argument that the author presented that, hey, people are hunting these, animals. So in that domain, this might be a reason for them to stay, not leave, okay? So, but let's just keep it. It was more extensive than had previously been documented? Isn't this the same problem it had with the previous archaeologist's research? Did the author tell me anything about the previous and the now? Come on, man, B is lying. It is likely resulted from factors of affecting crop viability. Affecting crop viability. It is likely resulted from factors of affecting crop viability. Don't you think that this is the reason why? The author did say that people, because of the loss in their crops, people had to shift towards hunting. And over here it says, the data suggests that near the end of the site occupation, villagers experienced substantial food shortage and adopted hunting and gathering strategies to compensate for crop failure. Crop failure. It is likely resulted from factors affecting crop viability. So because of the crop failure, people were willing to leave this place. Okay. A seems a slightly better answer, but let me confirm with C. It may have been hastened. So the abandonment, people left quickly because the wild animals in that area were abundant. So I honestly I need to use an inference or a threat, this inference, which is basically not supported by the passage. So I have no choice but to deselect this and choose A. Okay? And let me just confirm from the answer key. Yeah, it's C and A. Yeah, I got this correct. So guys, do you have any question relating to this one? So I kind of went over it through a bit in a quiet, in detailed fashion. I hope everything was clear. So you guys want me to repeat anything? Do you guys have any questions? Okay, cool.